the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Journal again. We are here for another evening of Talk on Rangers and all things happening. We hope that we'll have another interesting night of conversation. Look forward to getting everyone involved. To start by introducing our panel this evening, I'll go directly below me and introduce Stevie.
Good evening, mate. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. It's a pleasure to have you as always.
Cheers, mate.
And going to my bottom right-hand corner, we've got the, as I like to call him, the handsomest man on Rangers Journal, Dino. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Doug. Thank you for having me on. How are you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Good.
And hopefully our guest this evening, his camera's disappeared for the moment. Are you still there, Diggy? His camera's gone for now, but we'll welcome him as soon as he comes back. Welcome to everyone who's, as I say, come and joined us tonight. Thank you once again for joining us here at the Rangers Journal. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about the squad and where we feel we are kind of as a team at the moment. The team's obviously played a few of its friendlies now. We've got one main game left. I'm not sure if we've got any other behind the scenes or anything like that matches. So kind of the main one friendly. So we're gonna have a wee look at where we are right now. We'll talk a little bit about ins and outs and things like that. Where the squad is in terms of those where we might be if some of our potential signing targets do get through the door, and obviously some of the players that we're potentially looking at leaving end up going as well. So I'll start with the match yesterday, just quickly to touch on that. Guys, we did a post-match last night where we were not especially complimentary of the team, and we're fairly disappointed overall with how things went. If I start with yourself, Stevie, did you see the match? And if so, did you have any thoughts? You're on mute there, mate. Stevie, you're on mute.
Apologies. It's the first time I've done
that. How was this all?
I was trying to say, I thought we started no bad. I thought it was a decent tempo to start off with. Then we lose a kind of fairly poor goal, Tav's own goal. Wee bits of play here and there, I thought we looked okay. But yeah, overall, to me, it was just a kind of typical pre-season friendly. But obviously, being Rangers and the kind of press that we get, there's a lot of people like up in arms almost about it. I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I wouldn't look too, I don't look too deeply into these games. To me, it's just getting the 90 minutes. I know you want to play well, but there was a few wee kind of sparks, different players. I thought Lowry, great to see him get a start. McCausland as well. I thought he looked keen, and Barron, I thought when he came on, he looked keen as mustard. So there's enough there. I know there's no result you want, but like I say, there's been other pre-season games where we've beaten Real Madrid. And I don't think it's really an indication the season is going to come. To me, it's just getting the minutes in the legs, get a bit of fitness. And that team that started last night, and that's not going to be the team that starts next in the Champions League qualifier. So, no, I think it's a fitness thing, and just leave it at that, and get another game at the weekend and go for there.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back there. Dougie, I'll introduce you now. Our guest for this evening, Dougie's come on to join us, so thank you very much for coming in. But always good to have some fresh voices on the channel. If you want to say hi to the viewers and then give us your thoughts on what you made of yesterday.
Yeah, good evening. That was amateur stuff. I don't know what happened. The minute we went live, the sound completely cut off, but I switch off and back on again always fixes it right. So yeah, thanks very much for having me on, making my Rangers Journal debut tonight. Do you know, when you join a podcast, you want to be talking happy thoughts, don't you? Unfortunately, after the third pre-season game, it's another defeat, 3 defeats from 3 games. And sometimes in pre-season, there's the mentions that it's all about fitness, the results are out the window. Not for me. You need to be building momentum at this stage of the season before you enter into the league campaign. And there is no momentum at the moment at any level of the club right now. I think the biggest concern for me, having watched the Birmingham game last night, is not the result; it's the performance. Particularly in the first half, there was absolutely zero system, and the biggest concern for me was the endeavour from the players. You know, when Clement spoke post match, he mentioned that there was no system changes in the second half, where we got a better performance. It wasn't great, but it was better. We made no changes to the system, so that comes down to ability. It comes down to endeavour for me, and I think it's just lacking across the entire squad right now. Massive concerns as we are now 9 days away from the league campaign kicking off.
Absolutely, I think a lot of the comments that are coming in there are saying a lot of similar things. Hugo Bear, in particular, mentioning we need several experienced, competent signings, and I think that's definitely true. We've obviously got a much younger squad dynamic now, and replacing some of that experience is going to be really important to help the younger players that we've brought in to get them coming forward. Have you got any thoughts on that in terms of, like, based on your thoughts on the game last night? What type of signings do you think are the most important?
I only caught the second half because I was working. So with what I saw, it was pretty crap. It was just flat. There was nothing really to get excited about. And the funny thing was our goal was actually pretty good on eye, wasn't it? And it's quite surprising that it was from Wright and Dessers, So, but I think sort of like echoing there what both guys actually have said. There's two sides of the coin, I think, and we've got to look at it in a way that we're now in the third rebuild in 3 years. Because if you think about it, Gerrard had his players slightly play. Gio comes in, completely changes it. Again, his own style of play, things like that. Then Bale comes in, changes it again. And Clemence came in and picked up the crap. And he hasn't really given anybody sort of any indication that he has a style of play. Do you know, so I think we need signings that is going to establish his style of play, and if he's going to be able to mix things up and change it, because we can't be in another situation that if plan A doesn't work, you do plan A better, because that's not going to get us anywhere, and it hasn't done. So we need players that are going to be statement signings, I think.
Can I just come on there for a second?
Absolutely, Stevie.
Just, I think when Clement took over last season, we were on our knees, and we probably should have won the league last season. He did get them going. We kind of fell away towards the end, but you can polish your turd as many ways as you want, but he's inherited some absolute duds for Beale. Won us the League Cup. I know we're already in the semi-finals, but we're still only looking at Cortez and Diamondi as his signings. The squad is essentially the same as last season, but to me, this is the overhaul. We're not getting the overhaul that we've needed for a long time. I feel quite positive. To me, I almost feel it's like Gerrard's first season. These guys that are about to leave, Goldson, Tav, Cantwell, we're getting rid of the higher earners. I've heard as well, like Kenny McLean apparently wants to come, but the club are like, no, we're not getting a 32-year-old a 3-year contract. To me, this is positive stuff. It's like, we're signing younger guys, the profile that we want. And I get there's a lot of negativity around like performances and whatever in pre-season in the stadium. It's no ideal. But to me, this is like a really, I'm quite positive. Obviously, we need signings, absolutely. But we're now getting rid of, we're jettisoning the players that we should have got rid of 2 years ago. So to me, this is the real rebuild, So I think, like you said, Dean, it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, if I come to you, Diggy, I was going to touch on that, and I think Stevie's kind of brought it up there. Is, to me, a lot of people are sort of touching on the fact that we've had rebuild after rebuild after rebuild, but I feel like the way that this one's going, in particular with the way that there is really a severe clearing of the decks, that this is a more significant change. Clement termed it as a change of era when he came into the club. So I feel like the fact that it's not going quite as well as we wanted to isn't necessarily as bad, I think, as we maybe feel it is, because we're at a point where it's been a necessary step, and the step is such a big one that we're going to just have to, take a little bit of time to get it right and not fall into the trap of potentially 6 months' time just binning Clement, because he's the one that's really doing the big rebuild, the more Gerrard-esque rebuild, rather than the two that have come before.
Yeah, for me, there's three different reasons why we're in a rebuild, right? So first reason is we don't have a football infrastructure above the management level. Niels Coppen is a director of football recruitment. We do not have a director of football. And therefore, when we change managers and a new manager comes in with a slightly different style, for example, you inherit the squad from the previous manager who may not suit your style. So if you watch the Man United game, as an example, during pre-season, you had Tom Lawrence and Cyril Dessers trying to play the high-energy, high-press system that Clement wants to play. They do not suit his system. So there absolutely needs to be a change in the personnel to allow us to play to the system that the new manager wants to play. But there's bigger issues than that. You also need to make changes at the football infrastructure, which are long overdue at this football club. We need to create a football identity as a club at the highest level, and it goes down to the lowest level. So where is the youth development at the moment within the club? Where is the pipeline of youth players coming in ready to boost our squad? You see the youth players that played against Birmingham, they were not very good. So you need to do something at the high level of the football club around creating a football identity. There's a secondary issue as well of why we need to do overhaul the squad, and that's wages. We've been tasked by the board to reduce the wage bill. We have some very high earners in our squad. You have the likes of Connor Goldson on £37,000 a week. He's ageing. His pace is gone. He isn't the player that he was when Gerrard first signed him. You can even go down to the squad players. Guys like Connor Goldson are at least first pick, or they were first pick last season and before. Guys like Ben Davies, £27,000 a week. Rabbi Matondo, £28,000 a week. It's criminal how much, as a football club, we are paying average footballers. You look at the comments right now, and there's a lot of comments around how this is the worst squad that we've had in several years. This is a very expensive squad. It's a very different squad to the squad that Steven Gerrard inherited, because this is a squad that's filled with what should be talent because of the salaries that they earn. So there's an element there about finance. And then the third strand to it is age. Unfortunately, age has caught up with certain players, including Connor Goldson and including our captain, James Tavernier. So it's an opportunity for us to clear the decks, drain the swamp of players that have been here for a number of years, who have been around whilst the club has not had a period of success. And for that, we need to give the manager time. The manager needs to be able to pick his players. He's had a very tough summer. And the reason why we've had a very tough summer is out with his control. He can't shift players from the squad, from the wage bill just now. We have a first team squad of over 30. We have an absolute disaster happening in the stadium, where we're having to pay the SFA to use Hampden. We'll be losing sponsorship deals as a result of that as well. That will cost us millions. These are all things that are impacting the transfer spend for our manager. And I imagine him and Niels Coppen have had a very big list of targets going into this window. And I imagine that some of them will already be scored off because they've gone to clubs elsewhere, because they've been able to move a lot quicker than us. So whilst we've got to be patient, there's got to be a level of understanding around we are in this position. As I said earlier on, we're 9 days away, and the squad is not in a good shape. If you look at the starting 11, I think it was yourself, Stevie, around, there's not much change to the strongest starting 11 to last season. We've actually got weaker. Regardless of what people think about guys like John Lundstrom. John Lundstrom was a regular starter for this football club. He's gone. Seema's gone back to Brighton. Silva's gone back to Wolves. There's a strong argument right now that we have got weaker, but I think we need to go through a short-term pain, getting rid of some of the high earners to bring in the money to reduce the wage bill and then reinvest it in the long term. And what you're seeing just now with a lot of the transfer rumours is a lot of them are loans. And I don't think that's any coincidence that they're loans. There'll be loans with an option or an obligation to buy because we don't have the money this summer. Or potentially the likes of Juan Jordan, it could be a loan for a 30-year-old player who comes in for 12 months with a bit of experience and helps out the young guys like Diomande, Barron, Raskin for a period, because we need short-term sticky plasters right now as well, because we are not going to fix everything this window. So a lot of factors to the squad just now. A lot of sympathy for Clermont. That sympathy sometimes goes out the window when you watch the Birmingham game, and it is as poor as it was. But you've got to remember, you've got a heavily rotated squad, with us focusing on kind of these 3 games in the 7 days. You've got Man United, where we ultimately played our strongest 11. We rotated it for Birmingham, and then we hope to play a strong 11 against Union Berlin. So it'll be interesting to see how we perform against Union Berlin. But there's a lot of comments right now around fitness and how this is an opportunity to build fitness. There is a lot of players in this squad right now that are not up to speed. And that's unfortunate, because Clermont always spoke about having a strong pre-season to build fitness. James Tavernier unfortunately picked up an injury. Whether he's here longer term or not, still up for debate, but he's in the squad right now. And Danilo is returning from a very serious injury. So these guys are going to take time to get up to speed. So a lot of factors. You're 9 days away from the opening game of the season, though, and as I said already, concerned about what that first game looks like. I'm going to make the prediction right now, which is we will get stronger as the season goes on, and that will be because players will get up to speed. And I imagine new players that come in, we're heavily linked with Václav Černý, for example, from Wolfsburg. As I understand, he completed his medical today. He completed his photo shoot today. So I'm not sure what the hold-up is on Černý, but Černý hasn't completed a pre-season. So whilst he is the right profile player that we need to be bringing in, even the guys that we're going to sign between now and the window closing, they've not had a pre-season with us. They may not have had a pre-season elsewhere. It's going to take them time to get up to speed. So I think we might start slow, which is unfortunate when you consider the first 4 games that we've got. You've got Hearts opening game, you've got Celtic in the 4th game, you've got Champions League qualifiers. We might have a very, very tough month, very tough period to start with, but I predict that this football club and this team under Clermont should improve as the season goes on, and I think we need to be patient with them.
Absolutely, I think the patience there is a really important point. I'm going to come to you, Stevie, and then I'll get your thoughts on this as well. Dino, got a comment here from Billy mentioning Gerard's first season. He had the players playing his way right away, and Clermont hasn't done this. Do you think that Clermont's been hampered in being able to do that by not being able to get players in as quickly, not necessarily having all the players he wants? Obviously. Dougie touched on the fact there that he's still working with most of the previous manager squads. And Gerard, in his first season, Gerard brought in 19 players in his first season, and that includes the likes of Goldson, Barisic, Katic, Kamara, Scott Arfield.
He was a good player.
All players that went on to be pretty quickly first-team players and players that lasted. Whereas, like Dougie says there, I think we're going to have a few sticky plasters and things involved in this. So, what's your thoughts on, how Clermont's been hampered and how that's going to, like Dougie said, potentially lead to a slow start?
Yeah, Gerard basically signed a really good spine pretty much straight away. The players you mentioned there, gave a lot of kind of character. I think that's when Alan McGregor came back as well. You put those guys in the dressing room, that's leaders right there. So he had a far more straightforward start than what Clermont's inherited, a third of the way through last season. And like I said, just the quality that left last summer, like you think of Cholak, even Fashion Sakala. God, what I'd give for those 2 guys at Ibrox just now, loads of goals there. And Endeavour, the press as well, with Fashion's running. The situation that Clermont has faced is completely different for Gerard. But like I've kind of touched on before, it's the same squad. Essentially, the only real new first-team player is Barron, and Jeff to the left back. And obviously, it's going to take him time to settle as well. So, a lot more kind of battles for Clermont to kind of iron it and get through. So he's working with one hand tied behind his back. It's not an easy scenario for him, but I agree with what Dougie said. He absolutely deserves the time and the patience for the fans, which you don't always get. But what's the alternative? We have a bad start to the season. Fans probably all be calling for his head, but what does that achieve? It just sets you back further. It's like he needs the time. Give him the full season and see how we progress. I'm sure more players will come in. Hopefully, like established players after, and then we'll take it for there.
Stevie, there's also a difference between Gerrard coming in and Clement coming in, because Gerrard came in during pre-season. He knew he was coming into the club before pre-season, so he had time to prepare his squad during the summer. Time even before he took the reins at Rangers to prepare his squad, who he was going to sign. Clement came in during the season, so he's not had the time, first of all, to prepare his squad, nor has he had the budget that Gerrard had. So I think it's a very harsh criticism when people say about Clement in a system, because he hasn't been able to bring in his players, and we can only judge him when he does bring in his players. And you can only bring in his players when he reduces the wage bill and gets players out the door. So it's a very, very vicious circle right now for him.
100%, mate. Correct.
Absolutely. Okay, Dino, I'll come to you. I've got here a bit of a graphic for us to sort of play with. So this, for those watching, I've got here the squad as shown on transfer market that we have currently. Your players there that are showing in blue are players that are sort of at the club, and there's no real super strong rumours or connections in terms of them leaving. There may have been some things, but nothing kind of concrete. Your guys that are shown in red, those are players where there are or have been more concrete links or rumours. So like your Dessers, your Tavernier, Goldson, and as of yesterday, Cantwell not connected, but obviously en route out. And then on the right-hand side, you've got a list of players there in orange. Here are the ones that we've kind of been linked with in terms of potential players coming in. So I've just put a random team kind of on the board for us as a bit of a starter. I think I've kind of roughly got what I think probably would be, by and large, the strongest team, give or take one or two positions I think we can make arguments about. When you're looking at that, is there any particular thoughts that come to your mind if that was to be the kind of team that we started with at Hearts?
Yeah, probably absolute dread, to be quite honest with you. If that's a team that starts against Hearts. No other way to put it.
What particular parts of it make you feel
two guys in red.
Dessers, Tav, Davies, that I would give an argument as well to, obviously I'd have Sterling at right back, and then you're needing somebody else in that midfield role. If you're going to be, if there's going to be a 6 there, or if it's going to be a 10. Again, I get what the guys are saying, but Dougie mentioned there about Clement not having his players to play his system and things like that, which you've got to understand. That's if you've got an ethos and a philosophy and how you want to play the game, and you've not got players to play that game for you, it does make your job that bit more difficult. However, what I think is that players are very adaptable these days, and I know that Sterling is probably a very good example, but having that versatility and adaptability in the modern game is what's needed these days. And if we have players that have only been here 2-3 years that aren't adaptable, then it kind of questions a lot of things, doesn't it? Whereas I think, Sterling was, if you asked him to go and clean the boots, he would have, do you know what I mean? The guy would have done anything for the club last season, and any responsibility put upon him, he took that. So I don't think that it's necessarily down to us not having the players able to play positions. I just think it's players that are not willing to, if to be quite honest with you. And I guess that must be frustrating even more for Clement, because as we've just alluded to, the fact that Gerrard's coming in had completely different circumstances, and we gave Gerrard the patience when he came in, because we had been absolutely dug meat for years, getting pumped with them at home and things like that. Gerrard came in, and if you remember right, we started the qualifying in Europe from the very first stage. We were unlucky not to get put through in that group. Spartak Moscow, I think, rings a bell. And albeit we got beat the first Old Firm game of the season, I would say that we were unlucky that game. I know people would argue, but we challenged them. We were there. I don't think this Rangers team could go into an Old Firm game like that and be that good. And then obviously we beat them at the return fixture. Ryan Jack Scholes. So we gave Gerrard time. Because we could see a change. I don't think Clement's going to get that same amount of time. So going with that squad, you get beaten first day of the season against Hearts. I mean, that's going to be a massive tip in the scales, in my opinion.
You make a really good point there, mate, about Gerrard's first few games was the Europa League qualifiers. He got momentum because we were playing at a lower level, whereas Clement, again, he's facing Champions League qualifiers, which are more difficult, obviously. So yeah, that kind of goes against him as well, more pressure. But see that team, that midfield, to me, I like that midfield. There's so much legs in that Barron, Sterling and Diamonde, Cortez and McCausland. I think that's really an exciting midfield five. Defence, not so much, but yeah, obviously not so sure about Dessers. Somebody put a comment there asking for Shankland to be up front instead of Dessers, and that'd be a great team. But yeah, it's Hearts away. Tynecastle's a great away game, so bring it on. I'm looking forward to it.
If I can come over to you, Jiggy, one thing I thought was a bit interesting there. Obviously, Dino touched on the prospect of us losing that opening game and the pressure that would bring. Obviously, we lost the opening game of the season last year. Do you think there will fans have the same sort of guttural reaction that they did last year, or do you think there would be any level of temperance there because of the build and the fact that there's so much going on? And do you think a lot of the anger would still go towards the board rather than the manager? Because I think a lot of the anger is heading in that direction at the moment.
Do you know, it's funny, I've seen a comment within the forum there around Rangers, you don't get time. You need to win instantly, and especially with everything that's on the table this season, Celtic can equal us in terms of the league trophies, which is huge. I always talk back to two simultaneous interviews that I've seen when Rangers were in the third division. One was Ali McCoist as Rangers manager, the other was Frank de Boer as Ajax manager. Ali McCoist was questioned around the team that he was building and why he decided to go and buy so many experienced players like Ian Black. And Ali McCoist said, at Rangers, you are only as good as your last game. You need to win every single game. You can't build for the future. You need to focus on the next game. They asked the same question, pretty much word for word, separately to Frank de Boer. And Frank de Boer said, we've already written off this season. What we are doing right now is we are building a squad that will compete at the highest level in 5 years' time. Now, what happened between those two teams is Rangers failed to get out of the Championship and had to get another manager in to transform the squad that was good enough to get us into top flight, and it took us years to be able to compete with Celtic in the top flight. Meanwhile, Ajax went on to get to a Champions League final. So I understand everything that's on the table this year. I understand the pressures of being a Rangers player as a Rangers supporter. But we need to be patient. There is no point in not backing Clement this summer and changing the manager again, who needs to start again. All the comments around Steven Gerrard is Steven Gerrard eventually won us the title. We had to go through a period of transition. He was given time to build that team. And let's not forget circumstances. We were not in a good place when COVID struck, for example. That was a big game changer for us because it cancelled the season. It allowed Gerrard to go away and really regroup, really focus on the squad and where he needs to take it. Philippe Clement needs time. He needs backed. And in terms of your question around what the fan reaction will be if we get beat against Hearts in the opening game of the season, I was at Kelly last season with my dad, and there is a difference again between the two. At Kelly, that was pretty much our strongest team. You knew that was the team that Beale had built. It was ready to go. I think come Hearts, it won't be the team that we'll see in a couple of weeks against Celtic, for example. So I think fans need to recognise that. But look at the social media response after the Birmingham game. It was a very negative reaction, and a lot of it was targeted at Philippe Clement. So I think we should back him 100%. I'm sure if we lose that opening game this season, there'll be a lot of pitchforks being sharpened.
Absolutely, I think they're already being sharpened. They'll be getting used, perhaps. But if I come back to you, Dino, again, Stevie mentioned that you're worried about the defence. If you had to pick any specific two players that from that four that you think worry you, what two would you pick, and who out of the folk to the right would you replace them with, if any?
What worries me is, when you think about it, our options are pretty limited. Some serious reinforcement needed there. I know that John Suter was played out of position last season, but I don't even think he had a good season. I think it was average. Had a lot of poor games, played decent in a few, but also you've got to caveat that with the fact they played with Goldson, who didn't have a good season either. So a lot of the time, Balogun, I'd have in every day of the week, to be quite honest with you.
Who'd you take out?
Davies, that goes without saying for me. So I would take Davies out and put Balogun in, because that's the lesser of the two evils, I think, for me. And for if that's the midfield that we're going with, then you've got to, you're not going to be bringing in. I mean,
would you keep Tavernier there, or would you replace him with Sterling? Assuming he's still there, of course.
I'd replace him with Sterling.
Yeah,
So a couple of changes from yourself there. So, Stevie, do you know?
No, I'm just saying that replacing them with Sterling, and the reason being because the two in midfield, I still think that we're going to go with a 10. I don't think we're going to be going with a midfield 3 first game of the season. Reason being is because there doesn't seem to be any sort of hint of that, perhaps deviating.
I will admit that was more aspirational for me. And
anything
else.
I think it's been quite synonymous throughout the Rangers support that we've been asking to play midfield 3, and that was from last season. And after the Old Firm games where we got absolutely annihilated in the middle of the park, I think every single fan was saying, "Why do we not play 3?" Do you know? So it's so the fact that you went with that, I concur that going with a midfield 3 is something that we need to look at. But I don't think that we will be doing that the first game of the season, because we've not had any sort of hint of that. And I mean, we've got one pre-season friendly left. Big, against a good side is quite a, are we going to, mix it up and gamble to then have that, potentially be the way we're going to line up against Hearts? So that's why I said to put Sterling at right back, because I think we're still going to go with the 10.
We'll bring you in, Stevie. So we made a couple of changes there, so that's left a gap in the midfield. So how would you reformulate the midfield? Do you think we'll have the 2 and the 10? And if so, who would you be putting into those spaces?
I think this exercise perfectly illustrates how we are lacking. It really does. But to me, I'm positive. I'd go for it. I'd drop Barron slightly deeper, or put him and Diamondi a little bit up deeper, and throw in either Matondo, Lawrence. Go for it. Just have a
Are you excited by the potential signings of people like Jordan?
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, what kind of pre-seasons he had, we have no idea. I think he only played 13 games last season, so I doubt very much it's realistic to expect him to come straight in and start. Maybe a substitute appearance. So I'd go with either Lowry, Matondo, or Lawrence. I don't know if he picked up an injury last night. But we're talking about if we lose this first game at Tynecastle, it's like going, we're Glasgow Rangers, we're going to go there to win, actually believe a bit. Approach it a bit more positively. So yeah, I'd go a bit more attacking. That defence fills me with much more confidence than when we started with before. So yeah, still plenty of legs there in the wing backs. Yilmaz and Stilling can support. So yeah, I'd like that team.
Okay, and coming over to you, Dougie, for the sort of attacking line. One of the things that's always concerned me, and something I don't think we've done well over the past few years, is we let players go who have decent goal contributions, and in some particular cases, really high goal contributions, and we've not always replaced them with people that fill those gaps. In the current squad, we've lost Seema, Cantwell's quite clearly going to be going out the door, Silva's gone, Lundstrom's gone. We're looking at getting rid of Scott Wright. We're looking at potentially getting rid of Tavernier and Dessers, who are our top two scorers. My worry is we're gutting the team of all the people basically with our goal contributions from not just last season, but multiple seasons in the case of obviously Tavernier. Where do you see the goals coming from in the coming season? Do you see it in this group? And again, would you make changes to that front three, and what would you do?
Yeah, go back to a point that Stevie made earlier on around how we are Glasgow Rangers. We should be going in with confidence to beat anyone. Of course we should. But if you look at that starting 11 in that squad and it doesn't fill you with absolute fear, then you're looking at the wrong squad, because that squad right now is not good enough to win a league campaign. It needs the reinforcement. So there's two things here around who starts against Hearts. Whoever starts against Hearts will not be the starting 11 in a month's time. It will be a very different looking team by the time we move players out, bring players in. But when you look at that team right now, there is not enough goals. There is not enough goals. First of all, Shankland will not play for Rangers. I'm also pretty convinced that we will not sign Lawrence Shankland. Philippe Clement said previously that Lawrence Shankland does not suit his system, and therefore he would not be looking to bring Lawrence Shankland into the club. I think that's unfortunate. I think Shankland could add value to us in many different ways, in terms of scoring goals, but obviously as a Rangers supporter, someone that knows the league, I think he could score goals for us. But I don't think it's going to happen because we prioritise the signing of Igamani as third choice behind Danilo. When you put Dessers in that team, having seen pre-season, now there was a comment, I think it was yourself actually, that said it about players that contribute goals. Dessers contributed goals last season. He scored more goals last season than Alfredo Morelos did in any league campaign in his time at Rangers. But if you've seen the chances that Dessers had in the Birmingham game alone, I have zero confidence that Dessers is a player that's going to lead us to glory next season. So I think Dessers will start up front against Hearts, but it's because Danilo's not ready and neither is Igamani. He will not be our striker. He cannot be our striker. If he's our striker, we will not win any silverware next season. Cortez, I'll come on to very briefly. We played our best football. If you think about Hearts at Ibrox, we played our best football when Cortez was fit and flying in our team. I think that will be a key position for us is the wide players. I think our width is fundamental to how Clement wants to play, and I think our wide players will contribute heavily to goals, whether it be directly or indirectly. So I think Cortez is a key of those three, and I think he will be key from Hearts and beyond. Right wing is a major problem. Our two options at right wing are McCausland and Wright. Neither are good enough to lead our Rangers team at right wing, but that's been a problem position ever since Candeas left. You could argue we haven't filled the right wing slot. You said there that Scott Wright, we are looking to move Scott Wright on. I have it on reliable information, and some supporters might not like this, that we have rejected several offers for Scott Wright. The management team are in no hurry to move Scott Wright on. They see him as a valuable squad player. My prediction for Hearts is that Scott Wright will start. whether that's right wing instead of McCausland, or whether that be his attacking midfield where he played against Birmingham, Scott Wright will be in the starting 11 is my prediction. You've then got the number 10 role. It will not be Alex Lowry. Alex Lowry did not put his claim in very well against Birmingham. That was his opportunity to stake a claim. The issue being right now is we have 5 number 10s, including Lowry, when you consider Lawrence, Cantwell, Lammers. You've got, who am I missing? Lawrence, Cantwell, Lammers, Hadji, and then Lowry. You have 5 players there. I'd be surprised if any of those 5 are here by the end of the window. But when it comes to Hearts, my prediction is that Scott Wright will start right wing and Tom Lawrence will start behind Dessers. And I think you'll see they two starting on Saturday against Union Berlin, and that'll be their opportunity to show that the game against Man United was a blip and that they can play in this system. They can play for Rangers. I'm not convinced, but with the limited options that you have on that right-hand side, I reckon that team that's going to be on the screen shortly will be the team that will start against Hearts.
Yeah, I give you quite a lot of that there. I mean, Scott Wright's an interesting one. I've said all along, people are like super desperate to get Scott Wright out the door. To me, he's the lowest priority to sell because A, he's not on a lot of wages. B, we're not going to get a lot of money for him. He's got that Scottish position for the European squad, and like I say, while he's not by no means the greatest player, he can do a job, and he's relatively reliable. So, although I would like to see him moved on, because I would ultimately prefer that the younger players, youth players, were getting the kind of minutes that he gets if possible. But yeah, he's certainly not on my priority list. So we've got we've made a few changes there. I put in a couple of adjustments as from the comments as well. People wanting to see Diomande a bit higher. What do you make, Stevie, of the left side, and how do you think we're going to see the battle between Jeffrey and Yilmaz this season? Do you think Yilmaz is, first of all, do you think Yilmaz has the shirt? And if so, do you think he's going to be able to keep it?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. I know Cortes only played half a dozen games last season, but as Dougie said, that was the best spell. And him and Yilmaz, they dovetailed so well, like the attacking threat in that side when they played together. And if they can build that type of relationship after half a dozen games, you give them half a season, a full season, and that could produce a lot of goals. And obviously, we are generally on the attack most of the time. So, yeah, to me, obviously, Jeffrey can obviously play now and again, but Yilmaz has definitely got the shot. And with Cortes, fingers crossed he stays fit. That's a partnership that can really reap dividends for Rangers. So I hope they both stay fit and keep going to what they started last season before Cortes' injury. Really strong down that side.
I've got a question here from Paul. He's asking me, well, right, get a new deal there. So he's got a year left, and obviously I think Paul said earlier in the comments as well. Obviously, there was that comment from Clement that players wouldn't be allowed to leave for free in the way they have done before. In terms of that, I mean, as I say, I think they will sell him when the time is right. As I say, I don't think they're in a hurry, but. I think when Clement said that, he more meant high-value players, so players that should have been moved on. We're talking about Kent, Morelos, and Lundstrom primarily. Those are 3 players who all had significant value, certainly for the types of money that we're dealing with financially, and all who should have been out the door before they were allowed to walk. I think that's primarily what he meant. Like I say, I mean, you suggested yourself, Paul. You're getting maybe $500,000 for him, which isn't nothing, but it's not the kind of we should have been getting around about 10 million for each for Kent and Morelos. So that's huge amounts of money that walked out the door in comparison to that. But yeah, we'll see what happens with him. I'm not too bothered either way. I think we've got more important things to push on with, which is, as I say, getting in higher quality players. So I'll come round everybody for a couple of changes, at least one suggestion each. I'll start with you, Dino. We've got players in orange there that are the kind of the main ones we've been linked to. I did notice someone mentioned I've forgotten to include Rahmani in there as well. So we will include his name. I just want to mention. If you could pick one player from that to put into the starting lineup, we'll say this is for the Celtic game now, so we're thinking of the full window here, and longer planning. You know, what's the position and what's the player that you most think can make a difference for us this year?
I'd take it Dessers for Shankland.
Shankland going back in. So what is it about Shankland for you that you think he should be there?
Well, sign Shankland, you win the league. I mean, not that I'm saying he would have scored, but last season, Dessers missed 26 big chances. Now, I'm not saying that Shankland would have scored every single one of them, but he would have scored a fair few. And if Dessers is getting 22 goals, Shankland got 30-odd goals, Shankland plays for Rangers next season, I wouldn't be surprised if he was close to 40 goals, because you've got to think as well, we'd be taking the penalties. So you sign Shankland, you win the league. Simple as that.
Okay, a big move there from Dino. Stevie, if I come to yourself, what's the big move that you think needs to make from these players?
You can leave Shankland exactly where he is, because Dino said that if we'd signed Shankland, we'd have won the league. If we'd signed him in January, we would have won the league. I've heard people say, where's the value in Lawrence Shankland? There's 30 goals. There's 40 million in the Champions League automatic spot. There's his value, To me, he's not just a brilliant goal scorer. He's a proper leader. His hold-up plays really good. It's kind of the whole package for me. He's a Scottish striker as well. I just think, if there's a possibility that we can get him and then raise the fund through Lammers and whoever else is going to get the door and get him in. Because like Dean just said, he stays fit, playing the Rangers team, creating chances. He scored 30 goals in the Hearts team, which, with the greatest respect, to the third best team. We weren't great last season, but they're still a fair way behind us. So you imagine that in the Rangers team, he would score dozens. And like I say, I like his temperament. I like the way he carries himself. And he'll be a great presence in the dressing room. So, to me, absolute no-brainer, Lawrence Shankland.
Okay, Doc. So we've got 2 votes for Shankland there. So I'll come to you, Jagia. So I'll give you 2. You can get to pick 2, seeing as both the lads have gone for overruling you and going for Shankland.
Well, I'm going to be controversial and say I completely disagree that if you sign Shankland, you win the league. I think Shankland is a good player domestically, yes. There's no guarantee that Lawrence Shankland comes in and hits the ground running at Rangers the way that he has done for Hearts. For me, it's no coincidence that in the Euros, Steve Clarke opted against Shankland as a starter and only gave him a couple of minutes here and there. He is not the answer for Rangers. We need a lot better than Lawrence Shankland. However, if I was to choose one player, one position to prioritise of that squad, it is central forward. But to bring in a new forward, because you've got Dessers, Danilo and Igamani, you need to sell Dessers. So I'm hoping that by the time Celtic comes round, Dessers has been sold and we have another striker lined up. Now, in terms of that other striker, the mention of Rahmani, I am 100% confident that he was our number 1 striker option, but he got a serious injury. It's his second serious injury in 12 months. I don't think we'll touch Rahmani, but there's been 0 other rumours around a centre forward. So I'm not sure who would come in yet, but I'm excited to see what rumours start to emerge around centre forward, because I think they'll start very, very soon. So centre forward is the one position I'd prioritise. Elsewhere, now, by the time Celtic comes round, that will not be the team, right? Picking another player to come out is simple, because I could pick who I think is the weakest link in there, but it's going to be a very different team. I can guarantee you that team will not be the team that plays against Celtic. And I'm just going to float the idea here of swapping out a midfield 3 of Lawrence, Barron and Diomande for Juan Jordan, Hannibal and Diomande. Instantly improves that starting 11. And those are realistic players that we can sign. So I think, using that analogy there, I think you could easily have those 3 in midfield with Czerny at right wing, Cortez left wing and a move forward. And that midfield to forward line all of a sudden looks hell of a lot better than it does right now. But I tell you, you don't win a league with Balogun, Suter and Davies as your first choice 3 defenders, so you need to sign another centre-back if Goldson goes. The squad turnover required is massive, but I think it will happen. We have to have faith that the squad turnover will happen.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm just going to stick Tierney in there as a different option for Scott Wright, so I want to see someone more exciting in there, although I'd happily take someone like Traore as well. I think he's a good player, a hat-trick in his Champions League game the other day as well.
Okay, can I quickly come back on Shankland there? Sorry, I can't let that go. We got 14 minutes. You got 14 minutes in that last Scotland game, and it was only 14 minutes we actually thought we were going to score a goal because of his presence. He's perfectly. He doesn't have to adapt to Scottish football. The guys you've mentioned there, Hannibal, Jordan. I hope we sign these guys, but we've got no idea how they're going to adapt to Scottish football. I know they've got quality, but we don't know how they're going to adapt. Lawrence Shankland is here. He's proven for 6 years, half a dozen years. He scores a barrel of the goals in average teams. You put him in Rangers, he will score goals without a shadow of a doubt. I never said we win the league this season. I think we said him in January there, going with the clinched the title last season, maybe the Scottish Cup. Sorry, I couldn't let that go. To me, he's got to be at Rangers before the transfer window shuts.
Let's have a debate on that then, Stevie, because Lawrence Shankland for me doesn't suit Philippe Clement's style. You know, Philippe Clement's going to want energy up front. Lawrence Shankland is not that man, right? So he's too
penalty box.
I was going to say immobile. It's not. Yeah, he's penalty box. I don't believe that the manager's looking for a penalty box striker. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think it will be Shankland. But also, Shankland is not. What was I going to say about Shankland there? He's never proven against a deep defence. I think when you see Lawrence Shankland for Hearts, he's getting space. At Rangers, you do not get space. So there's a big difference between scoring goals for Hearts and scoring goals for Rangers. I don't think his game instantly evolves from, going from directly how he plays to Hearts into the Rangers team. And I think that's where, for me, there's a red flag over Lawrence Shankland. Yes, I would have him in my squad all day long because I think he adds value, but he is not the starting striker quality that we need at Rangers. The barometer that I always use is, would he get into the Celtic team? And the answer to that is an emphatic no. We need to sign a centre-forward at a pedigree that walks into the Celtic team.
Did he not score goals at Parkhead last season when Hearts beat Celtic? He's got that in his locker. He's went to Parkhead, he's done it. You mentioned the boy for Bucharest. I mean, again, looks really good, but what do we know about him if he really comes here? I don't know. Like, we've no strikers who score loads of goals. They're so few and far between. We had one, Cholak. Can we stupidly let him go? I don't know.
Cholak wasn't the answer either. These guys are not the answer, and it's largely because of the way that they play. Cholak, if he didn't score, he contributed absolutely nothing to the squad.
He did. Score them. He scored the barrel.
Not towards the end, he didn't. Towards the end, he did not. He went right off the cliff.
Michael Beale dropped him. Michael Beale just gone. And what do we think about Michael Beale? The less said about him, the better.
We need a player who's going to contribute. We need a player who's going to contribute more than just standing in the penalty box.
He doesn't just stand in the penalty box. Come on. The link-up plays improved so much in the last 2 years. I've watched Hearts. I've watched Scotland. 14 minutes in this class. Dino, what do you think?
Well, I remember last year we did the sort of Dessers v Shankland podcast, and there was a heat map that was brought up of comparing Shankland's heat map to Dessers, right? And Shankland was far better in terms of places that he was on the pitch. So he is very mobile. He is and not just his goal scoring. He is so good at holding the ball up and bringing others into play, and that's something that he's adapted to his game because he wasn't always like that. And so he's been able to adapt his game for a set style at the age that he is, and it's not just the goals that he brings. We are starved of proper leadership in our team, and albeit he maybe wouldn't be a captain, he would be a captain in terms of being on the pitch and influence and a voice. Rangers teams of years gone by, had these captains, these leaders, these characters, he would be somebody that fills a massive void for us. And then on top of that, you do get the goals that he scores. He's played in Europe, he's scored in Europe. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't use Steve Clarke's picking players as a barometer, because he's not that good a manager, in my opinion. And Scotland could have done way better than they did with the players that they've got. So I think that Shankland had give him any sort of role, I think he would do his best to adapt it. Kind of, I touched on it on Tuesday night, was that if when we had a great front press, we pressed as a unit, and if he's got, looking at that, if he's got Cortez and Czerny either side, they'll be pressing as a unit. Shankland's not going to be running about and chasing a ball all by himself. So you want to be thinking that the press is going to be done. And I compare it to how well Gerrard had it drilled into them. And I think that's the kind of way that Clement wants to play. And I think that Shankland would be pretty good at it.
Okay, well, we'll bring it to a close there. I think that's a debate that will go on until the end of time, or at least until the first whistle of the new season. Strong feelings either way. I know a lot of fans are the same. There's a lot of fans that's their number one target, and there's a lot of people that you don't think he's the man to bring us to the promised land. I'm just going to very quickly. Peter Shields in the comments asked a quick question: Shankland and Danilo, or Shankland and Egamani? Peter, I would probably put him with Danilo, just because I've seen more of Danilo, and I've not really seen anything of Egamani yet, so I don't know what kind of combination they would make. So I'll go with that. But thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. It's been a lively discussion. Lots of things to cover. Give us a like if you think this starting 11 is better than the starting 11 that we started with at the beginning of this pod. If there's not a million likes on that, then I don't know what everyone's thinking. But it just leaves me to thank each of the panel. So thanks, Dino, for joining in.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, Doug, it's been a pleasure and privilege as always, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Stevie.
Thanks, mate. Pleasure as always. Cheers.
And thank you to our guest for this evening, Doogie. Thanks for coming in and bringing your new voice to the channel.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks. And of course, thanks to everyone in the comments for everything you've commented in there, and for tuning in every night to the Rangers Journal. So it just leaves me to say to remember that every night is Rangers Journal night.